Chosen one, listen carefully, because this message is reaching you at a moment when something greater than what you can see is already moving behind the scenes. God said your rise will shock your family, not because you will become arrogant, but because they will witness a version of you they never expected to emerge. They remember your struggles, your silence, your failures, and the seasons when you had almost nothing to show for your prayers. But they do not know what God has been building inside you. What looked like delay was preparation, and what felt like rejection was protection. Your time is changing. Chosen one, there are moments in life when God begins to move in such a powerful way that even the people who once underestimated you will have no choice but to recognize the transformation. Your rise will not happen according to the schedule people placed on your life. It will happen according to a divine timing that you could not force, manipulate, or predict. And when it happens, some members of your own family may look at you differently because they remember who you were before the breakthrough. They remember the nights when you struggled quietly. They remember the seasons when you had to make something out of almost nothing. They remember when you were the one who had dreams but did not yet have the resources to make those dreams visible. They may have watched you struggle and assumed that your circumstances were a reflection of your destiny. But God saw something they could not see. God saw your potential before you had evidence. God saw your future while you were still fighting through your past. God saw the strength developing inside you while others only saw your weakness. And that is why your rise is going to shock them. Not because you need their approval, but because your transformation will become undeniable. There is something powerful about a person who survives what was supposed to destroy them. There is something different about someone who has cried in private and still found the courage to wake up the next morning and keep moving. You may not realize it, chosen one, but every difficult season has been developing something in you that comfort could never produce. Your patience was developed in the waiting. Your wisdom was developed through disappointment. Your discernment was developed through betrayal. Your strength was developed through adversity. Your faith was developed when you had no evidence that anything was changing. And now, God is preparing to turn the very areas where you felt most defeated into evidence of how far you have come. There were people who thought you would remain stuck. There were people who became comfortable with the idea of you struggling. There were people who only knew how to recognize the old version of you, because they never took the time to understand what was happening within you. But God has been doing a work that did not require an announcement. You did not need to tell everyone what you were becoming. You did not need to explain every prayer. You did not need to announce every sacrifice. You did not need to prove that you were changing. Sometimes the deepest work happens in silence. A seed does not make noise while it is breaking through the ground. Yet underneath the surface, something powerful is happening. Roots are developing. Strength is forming. Life is preparing to emerge. That is where you have been. Under the surface, in preparation, in development, in a season where it may have looked like nothing was happening. But something was happening. God was preparing you. And when your season finally changes, people may call it sudden. They may say you got lucky. They may say things changed overnight. They may wonder where the confidence came from, where the opportunity came from, where the resources came from, where the wisdom came from, and how you suddenly became capable of things you once could only dream about. But you will know. You will know about the nights nobody saw. You will know about the tears nobody witnessed. You will know about the prayers you whispered when you were too tired to speak loudly. You will know about the moments when giving up seemed easier than continuing. And you will know that your rise was never merely about success. It was about becoming. God was not simply trying to give you something. God was preparing you to carry something. There is a difference. Some people ask for the blessing, but never ask for the capacity to handle it. They want the platform without the preparation. They want the influence without the discipline. They want the abundance without the responsibility. But God has been teaching you that what is coming requires a stronger version of you. That is why some doors took longer to open. That is why some opportunities disappeared. That is why certain relationships ended. That is why certain plans failed. You thought you were losing something. God may have been removing something that could not go where you are going. Not every closed door was punishment. Some closed doors were protection. Some delays were preparation. Some disappointments were redirection. Some endings were the beginning of your freedom. And one day, when you look back, you may realize that the thing you cried over was the very thing that made room for the life you prayed for. Chosen one, do not allow the opinions of people who only know your past to determine how you feel about your future. People can become attached to an outdated version of you. They may remember your mistakes more clearly than your growth. They may remember your failures more clearly than your perseverance. They may remember the time you fell but forget how many times you stood back up. But God is not limited by the version of you that people remember. Your past does not have the final word. Your mistakes do not have the final word. Your family history does not have the final word. Your financial history does not have the final word. Your previous disappointments do not have the final word. God has the final word. And when God decides to elevate someone, no human being has the authority to cancel what he has ordained. That does not mean the journey will be effortless. It means your obstacles will not be greater than the purpose placed within you. There may still be challenges. There may still be moments of uncertainty. There may still be days when you question whether you are truly moving forward. But do not confuse movement with noise. Not every breakthrough arrives with fireworks. Sometimes breakthrough begins with a change in your thinking. Sometimes it begins with a new level of discipline. Sometimes it begins when you finally stop chasing people who never valued you. Sometimes it begins when you stop begging for doors that God has already closed. Sometimes it begins when you decide that you will no longer betray yourself simply to keep other people comfortable. And that decision can change everything. You are entering a season where you will have to trust what God is doing even when you cannot explain it to everyone around you. Some people will not understand your new boundaries. Some will not understand why you are quieter. Some will not understand why you are more selective with your time. Some will not understand why you no longer participate in conversations that drain you. Some will wonder why you stop trying to convince everyone that you are worthy. Let them wonder. You do not need to explain every transformation. When a person has truly changed, their life eventually becomes the explanation. Your consistency will speak. Your character will speak. Your results will speak. Your peace will speak. Your growth will speak. And one of the most powerful things you can do in this season is refuse to become distracted by people waiting for you to prove yourself. You were not created to spend your entire life defending your potential. You were created to walk in it. There is a difference between being unseen and being forgotten. You may have felt unseen, but God has not forgotten you. There is a difference between being delayed and being denied. You may have experienced delay, but that does not mean your promise has been denied. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned. There may be seasons where you walk alone, but that does not mean you are abandoned. Sometimes God separates you from familiar surroundings because familiarity can keep you attached to a version of yourself that is no longer compatible with your future. You cannot carry every person into every season. Some relationships belong to your history, some belong to your present, and some may belong to your future. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Your rise will shock your family because some of them may have already created a mental ceiling over your life. They may have unconsciously decided what they think you can achieve. They may have looked at where you started and assumed that is where you will remain. But God is not obligated to honor the limitations people placed on you. You may come from a family where nobody expected someone like you to rise. You may come from circumstances where ambition seemed unrealistic. You may have grown up hearing that certain things were not for people like you. But sometimes God raises one person in a family to demonstrate that the pattern can be broken. One person decides to think differently. One person decides to heal. One person decides to build. One person decides to believe again. One person decides to pursue wisdom instead of repeating the same cycle. And suddenly, an entire family can see a different possibility. Your success may become evidence to someone else that their own life can change. Your discipline may inspire someone who has given up. Your courage may give someone else permission to try again. Your story may become the testimony that someone needed to hear. That is why you must not despise the process. You are not only becoming someone for yourself. The life you build may become a doorway of hope for people who come after you. But before your external life changes, your internal life must become strong enough to sustain the change. God is teaching you not to measure your worth by applause. Because if your confidence depends on applause, criticism will destroy it. If your identity depends on approval, rejection will control you. If your peace depends on everyone understanding you, misunderstanding will steal your peace. You must reach a place where you can say, I know who I am, even when nobody claps. That is maturity. That is strength. That is freedom. And when you reach that place, you become dangerous to the limitations that once controlled you. You stop negotiating with your destiny. You stop shrinking yourself to fit rooms that were never designed to contain your growth. You stop apologizing for becoming disciplined. You stop feeling guilty for wanting more from life. You stop believing that your dreams are selfish simply because other people are afraid of change. Chosen one, there is nothing wrong with wanting to become everything God created you to become. You can be humble and still be ambitious. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can forgive someone and still refuse to return to the same environment. You can love your family and still choose a different path. You can honor where you came from without allowing it to dictate where you are going. And that is where your rise begins to become visible. Not when everyone suddenly believes in you, but when you finally believe that your obedience matters even when nobody understands it. There will come a moment when opportunities begin appearing that you could not have arranged yourself. Conversations will happen that you did not expect. Connections will form that you could not have predicted. Ideas will come at the right moment. Resources will appear when they are needed. And suddenly, you will understand why certain things had to happen in the order they did. You will look back at the season you thought was wasted and realize it was training. You will look back at the rejection you thought broke you and realize it redirected you. You will look back at the relationship you thought you could not live without and realize losing it gave you room to discover yourself. You will look back at the empty season and realize that emptiness created space. And you will understand that God was not absent. God was working in ways you could not yet recognize. So keep going, keep building, keep praying, keep learning, keep becoming. Do not rush simply because someone else appears ahead of you. Your race is not their race. Your timing is not their timing. Your assignment is not their assignment. You do not need to compete with people who were never called to carry what you carry. Focus on your path. Focus on your character. Focus on your relationship with God. Focus on becoming disciplined enough to handle what you have been asking for. Because when the opportunity comes, you do not want to meet your breakthrough as the same person who prayed for it. You want to be ready. You want to have the wisdom to recognize it. You want to have the discipline to protect it. You want to have the humility to steward it. And you want to have the courage to walk through the door when it opens. Your family may be surprised. Your friends may be surprised. People from your past may be surprised. But you do not need to be surprised, because somewhere inside you, you have always known there was more. You have felt it in the moments when you could not settle. You have felt it when ordinary circumstances could no longer satisfy your spirit. You have felt it when something inside you kept whispering that your story was not finished. Listen to that conviction. Do not mistake it for arrogance. There is a difference between thinking you are better than everyone and believing that your life has a purpose. Humility does not mean thinking less of yourself. It means understanding that whatever you become, you are responsible for how you use it. So when your rise comes, do not become the person who once hurt you. Do not let success make you cruel. Do not let money make you arrogant. Do not let recognition make you forget the people who helped you when you were struggling. Do not let elevation disconnect you from compassion. Rise, but remain grounded. Grow, but remain grateful. Become stronger, but remain gentle. Because the greatest evidence of transformation will not simply be what you possess. It will be who you have become. And when the people who knew the old you encounter the new you, they may not understand how the change happened. They may ask when you became so confident. They may ask how you became so focused. They may ask why you no longer react the way you used to. They may ask why rejection no longer destroys you. They may ask why you no longer chase approval. And you may not have a complicated answer. You may simply know that somewhere along the way, God taught you that your future was too valuable to keep sacrificing for temporary acceptance. That lesson changed you. And once you understand that, you stop begging people to recognize what God is developing inside you. You stop demanding applause. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining every move. You simply keep walking. One step, then another, until one day you look around and realize you are standing in a place you once prayed to reach. And that is when you will understand why you had to survive the seasons that tried to convince you that your story was over. Your story was never over. You were being prepared. Your rise was being prepared. Your influence was being prepared. Your capacity was being prepared. Your character was being prepared. And even now, while you are listening to these words, there may be things happening beyond your sight. Something may be shifting. Something may be aligning. Something may be closing. Something may be opening. Something may be leaving. Something may be arriving. And you may not yet understand the full picture. But you do not need the entire map to take the next step. You only need enough faith to keep moving. Because sometimes the next chapter does not appear until you have the courage to leave the previous one. So do not keep standing at the door of a season that God is asking you to leave. Walk forward. There is more ahead. There is more growth ahead. There are more lessons ahead. There are more opportunities ahead. There are more moments where you will realize that the person you became through the struggle was stronger than the person who entered it. And perhaps that is the greatest part of your rise. Not that everyone will suddenly see you differently, but that you will finally see yourself differently. You will look at your reflection and no longer see the person who was constantly afraid of failing. You will see someone who survived, someone who learned, someone who endured, someone who kept believing, someone who kept walking, someone who refused to let disappointment become destiny. And when that realization settles deep inside you, something changes. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer wait for everyone to understand. You no longer wait for perfect conditions. You begin, you move, you build. You obey, you trust, and slowly, the life that once existed only in your imagination begins taking shape in reality. That is why you must guard your focus in this season. Everyone does not deserve access to your plans. Everyone does not need to know what you are building. Everyone does not need to hear every prayer. There are things you should protect while they are still growing. A seed needs soil before it needs exposure. And sometimes your dream needs privacy before it needs publicity. Build quietly. Prepare deeply. Let your roots become stronger than your desire to be noticed, because when the time comes, you will not have to announce that you have grown. Your life will announce it for you. Your choices will announce it. Your peace will announce it. Your discipline will announce it. Your results will announce it. And the same people who once questioned whether you could rise may eventually ask how you did it. You will remember the days when nobody believed. You will remember the days when you had to encourage yourself. You will remember the days when your prayers seemed to disappear into silence. But you will also remember that you kept going. And that is where the next level of your story begins, because the person who once begged for an opportunity is becoming the person capable of creating opportunities, opening doors for others, and carrying a responsibility far greater than anything they could have imagined when they were simply trying to survive. Now you are beginning to understand that survival was never supposed to be your permanent identity. It was a chapter, not the entire story. You survived because you had somewhere to go. You endured because there was something on the other side of the pressure that required you to become stronger. You were not brought through those storms just to stand on the other side and remain the same person. There is a new level of confidence being developed inside you. Not the confidence that comes from knowing everything will always go your way, but the confidence that comes from knowing that even when things do not go your way, you will still find a way forward. That is a different kind of strength. You are no longer depending on perfect circumstances. You are learning how to move through imperfect circumstances with perfect faith. And that is why the things that once intimidated you will not have the same power over you anymore. There was a time when one rejection could make you question yourself. One criticism could make you doubt your ability. One failure could make you believe that your dream was impossible. One person walking away could make you wonder whether you were worthy of being loved. But something is changing. You are beginning to understand that one person's opinion cannot define an entire life. One failure cannot erase your potential. One closed door cannot cancel your future. One difficult season cannot determine your destiny. You are bigger than the moment you are currently experiencing. You are more than the circumstances surrounding you. And you are certainly more than what people have said about you. Chosen one. There are people who may only recognize your value once they see the evidence of your transformation. Do not be angry with them. Some people cannot recognize a seed because they only know how to admire trees. They could not see what was happening underground. They could not see your roots growing. They could not see your character developing. They could not see your faith becoming stronger. They could not see the private battles you were winning. They could not see the habits you were breaking. They could not see the mindset you were rebuilding. They could not see the person you were becoming. But eventually, what happens in private becomes visible in public. The root becomes the tree. The preparation becomes performance. The discipline becomes results. The prayer becomes testimony. And the person everyone thought would remain stuck begins moving in ways nobody anticipated. This is why you cannot allow yourself to become discouraged, because people do not recognize what God is doing in you yet. Recognition is not the same thing as confirmation. God can confirm something before people recognize it. You can know where you are going even when nobody around you understands the direction. You can carry a vision that your environment is not yet equipped to comprehend. You can have a dream that sounds impossible to someone who has never seen what you see. That does not make you foolish. It means you have to be careful about whose voice you allow to become louder than your conviction. Not every opinion deserves equal weight. Not every critic has earned the right to speak into your future. Some people speak from experience. Some speak from fear. Some speak from insecurity. Some speak from their own limitations. And sometimes people will tell you that something cannot be done simply because they could not imagine themselves doing it. Do not confuse their inability to imagine your future with your inability to create it. There is a reason God sometimes gives vision before provision. If everything appeared at the same time, you would never learn faith. If every answer arrived immediately, you would never develop patience. If every door opened the moment you knocked, you might never learn discernment. Sometimes the waiting is teaching you how to recognize the right door. Sometimes the silence is teaching you how to listen. Sometimes the uncertainty is teaching you how to trust. And sometimes the absence of visible progress is forcing you to develop internal progress. You may not have more money yet, but perhaps you have more wisdom. You may not have the opportunity yet, but perhaps you have more preparation. You may not have the relationship yet, but perhaps you have more self-respect. You may not have the platform yet, but perhaps you have more discipline. You may not have the answer yet, but perhaps you have more faith. Do not overlook the invisible progress simply because you are waiting for visible results. Some of the greatest transformations happen before anyone can measure them. Think about the way a person changes their life. It begins with a decision, then another decision, then a habit, then consistency, then discipline, then results. People usually notice the results and call them sudden. But there was nothing sudden about it. There were hundreds of small decisions nobody witnessed. There were mornings when the person did not feel motivated but continued anyway. There were nights when they wanted to quit but kept going. There were moments when nobody applauded. That is where greatness is built. Not in the spotlight, in the repetition, in the ordinary days, in the decisions nobody sees. And chosen one, your ordinary days are carrying extraordinary potential. Do not despise them. Do not wake up every morning believing that your life has to look spectacular for it to be meaningful. Some days are simply about staying consistent. Some days are about recovering. Some days are about learning. Some days are about resting. Some days are about beginning again. Beginning again is not failure. Sometimes beginning again is proof that you refuse to surrender. You may have fallen before. You may have made choices you regret. You may have wasted time. You may have trusted the wrong people. You may have allowed fear to control you. But you are not required to remain loyal to your old mistakes. You are allowed to grow beyond them. You are allowed to forgive yourself. You are allowed to change direction. You are allowed to become wiser. You are allowed to become disciplined. You are allowed to build a new identity. And when your family sees that transformation, some will celebrate you. Some may be confused. Some may question you. Some may compare themselves to you. Some may wonder why you are changing. And some may even try to pull you back toward the person you used to be. Be careful. Not everyone who misses the old you is concerned about your well-being. Sometimes people miss the version of you that was easier for them to control. They miss the version that always said yes. They miss the version that tolerated disrespect. They miss the version that had no boundaries. They miss the version that was afraid to speak. They miss the version that constantly needed approval. But God is teaching you something different. You can love people without allowing them to control your direction. You can honor your family without repeating every pattern. You can respect your past without living inside it. You can forgive without reopening every door. You can be generous without becoming available to manipulation. You can be compassionate without abandoning yourself. This is maturity, and your rise will not simply shock people because of what you accomplish. It will shock them because of who you become while accomplishing it. You will become calmer. You will become more focused. You will become less reactive. You will become more intentional. You will become harder to manipulate. You will become more comfortable with silence. You will become more selective about who gets access to your energy, and you will discover that peace is not boring. Peace is powerful. There is a season in your life where you will stop craving chaos because you finally understand what peace feels like. You will stop mistaking emotional intensity for genuine connection. You will stop believing that every relationship has to be difficult to be meaningful. You will stop thinking that struggle is the only evidence that something matters. You will learn that healthy things can feel unfamiliar simply because you have spent too long surviving unhealthy patterns. And when God begins introducing healthier opportunities into your life, do not sabotage them because they feel different. Sometimes peace feels strange when chaos has been your normal. Sometimes stability feels boring when instability has been your routine. Sometimes a good opportunity feels intimidating because you are accustomed to disappointment. Do not run from the very thing you prayed for simply because you are unfamiliar with receiving it. Learn how to receive. Learn how to rest. Learn how to trust. Learn how to believe that good things can remain. Because there may come a time when you no longer have to fight for every little thing. There may come a time when opportunities begin meeting your preparation. There may come a time when the work you have done quietly begins producing visible fruit. And when that happens, do not allow sudden success to make you forget gradual growth. Remember the process. Remember the struggle. Remember the people who helped you. Remember the lessons. Remember the humility. Remember the prayers. Remember the days when you had nothing but faith. Because those memories will keep you grounded when everything around you begins changing. Your family may see the house. They may see the career. They may see the money. They may see the opportunities. They may see the confidence. They may see the new environment. But they may never fully understand the cost. They may never know how many times you had to rebuild yourself. They may never know how many times you had to encourage your own heart. They may never know how difficult it was to keep believing when the evidence seemed to contradict your hope. But you know, and God knows. That is enough. You do not need everyone to understand the sacrifice. You do not need everyone to know the story behind the victory. Sometimes the most beautiful thing about a testimony is that only you and God know how impossible it looked before it happened. That is why you should not rush to explain everything. Let your life speak. Let time reveal what words cannot. People who doubted you today may understand you tomorrow. People who laughed at your vision may ask you for advice later. People who overlooked you may suddenly recognize your value. And when that happens, remember who you were before they noticed you. Do not become dependent on the same recognition you once lived without. If they clap, remain grateful. If they do not, keep moving. If they congratulate you, receive it with humility. If they criticize you, examine it with wisdom, and then keep moving. Your destination cannot be determined by the volume of other people's opinions. There will always be someone who thinks you are moving too slowly. There will always be someone who thinks you are moving too fast. Someone will think you are too ambitious. Someone else will think you are not ambitious enough. Someone will say you have changed. Someone else will say you have not changed enough. You cannot build your life around satisfying every voice. At some point, you have to become responsible for the calling placed within you. You have to make decisions. You have to choose. You have to move. You have to accept that some people will misunderstand you. And that is okay. Being misunderstood is sometimes the price of becoming something people have never seen you become before. Your rise will shock your family because they are familiar with your history. But God is familiar with your destiny. They know where you started. God knows where you are going. They know the mistakes you made. God knows the lessons you learned. They know the seasons you struggled. God knows what those seasons produced inside you. They may remember the person who was broken. God sees the person being rebuilt. They may remember your weakness. God sees your strength developing. They may remember your limitations. God sees your capacity. That is why you must stop allowing your past to intimidate your future. You have already survived things that once seemed impossible. Think about it. There were moments you thought you would never get through. And yet you are still here. There were days when you thought the pain would never end. And yet you are still standing. There were situations where you could not see a way out. And somehow, a way appeared. Maybe it was not the way you expected. Maybe it took longer than you wanted. Maybe you had to walk through something painful first. But you made it. And every time you survived something you thought would destroy you, you gained evidence. Evidence that you can keep going. Evidence that you can adapt. Evidence that you can rebuild. Evidence that you can learn. Evidence that you can endure. Evidence that your story does not end where your circumstances say it should. Now you are carrying a different kind of confidence. You have been tested. You have been stretched. You have been disappointed. You have been forced to grow. And there are lessons inside you that cannot be taught in a classroom. You learned people. You learned boundaries. You learned patience. You learned consequences. You learned discernment. You learned the difference between attention and love. You learned the difference between opportunity and distraction. You learned the difference between friendship and convenience. You learned the difference between being needed and being valued. And these lessons will protect you in the next season. Because your rise is not simply about receiving more. It is about losing less. You will lose less time to distractions. You will lose less energy to arguments. You will lose less peace to unnecessary drama. You will lose less focus to people who do not understand your assignment. You will lose less sleep trying to convince people of your worth. You will lose less of yourself trying to keep relationships alive that God may be asking you to release. This is why your rise is deeper than external success. It is internal freedom. There is a point where you become free from the need to be understood by everyone. There is a point where you become free from the fear of being rejected. There is a point where you become free from constantly comparing your life to someone else's. And when that freedom arrives, you begin making decisions from purpose instead of fear. You stop asking, "What will they think?" And you start asking, "What is right for my assignment?" You stop asking, "Will everyone approve?" And you start asking, "Am I walking in integrity?" You stop asking, "How quickly can I get there?" And you start asking, "Am I becoming the person capable of staying there?" That is wisdom. And God is not only preparing to change your circumstances. God is preparing to change your relationship with your circumstances. The same amount of difficulty that once broke you may eventually become the difficulty that develops you. The same pressure that once made you panic may eventually teach you how to remain calm. The same uncertainty that once terrified you may eventually teach you how to trust. You are learning not to be controlled by what you cannot control. You are learning to focus on what is within your responsibility. You can control your effort. You can control your choices. You can control your discipline. You can control your response. You can control what you allow into your mind. You can control whether you keep showing up. You cannot control every outcome. And you do not have to. Your responsibility is obedience. Your responsibility is preparation. Your responsibility is integrity. Your responsibility is movement. Let God handle what is beyond your hands. There are things you are trying to figure out that were never assigned to you. There are outcomes you are trying to force that require timing you do not control. There are people you are trying to convince who may never understand. Release them. Release the need to control every detail. Release the obsession with knowing exactly how everything will happen. Sometimes God gives you the destination without revealing every step, and that is where faith becomes real. You take the next step, then another, And eventually you look back and realize every step mattered. The setback mattered. The detour mattered. The waiting mattered. The lesson mattered. The relationship mattered, even if it ended. The rejection mattered. The failure mattered. The lonely season mattered. The quiet season mattered. Nothing was wasted. Even the moments that felt meaningless were shaping your understanding of yourself. And that is why you should not be ashamed of where you have been. You do not have to glorify your pain, but you can honor what you learned from it. You can say, that season hurt me, but it also taught me. You can say, that rejection disappointed me, but it redirected me. You can say, that betrayal broke my trust, but it also taught me discernment. You can say, that failure humbled me, but it also taught me discipline. You can say, that lonely season hurt, but it taught me how to stand without applause. And now you are entering a season where those lessons will become useful. You are not carrying them for nothing. The wisdom you gained will help you recognize opportunities. The patience you gained will help you handle responsibility. The discipline you gained will help you sustain growth. The boundaries you gained will help you protect your peace. The humility you gained will help you steward influence. The faith you gained will help you continue when the next challenge appears. Because yes, chosen one, there will still be challenges. Your rise does not mean you will never face difficulty again. It means difficulty will no longer have the final authority over you. You are becoming someone who can face adversity without immediately assuming that everything is falling apart. You are becoming someone who can experience a delay without believing that God has forgotten you. You are becoming someone who can hear no without deciding that you are worthless. You are becoming someone who can lose something without believing you have lost everything. And that is a powerful transformation. Your emotional world is becoming stronger. Your spiritual foundation is becoming deeper. Your mind is becoming clearer. Your standards are becoming healthier. Your vision is becoming larger. And eventually, the external world will begin reflecting the internal work that has already been happening. There will be opportunities that match your preparation. There will be conversations that match your maturity. There will be relationships that match your values. There will be environments that match your growth. And when you enter those spaces, do not shrink. Do not walk into the room apologizing for becoming who you were supposed to become. Stand with humility, speak with wisdom, listen carefully, learn continuously. But do not make yourself smaller simply because someone else is uncomfortable with your growth. You have spent enough time trying to fit into places that required you to abandon pieces of yourself. The next season will require authenticity. You cannot become everything God has called you to become while constantly pretending to be someone else. There is freedom in being honest about who you are. There is freedom in acknowledging what you are still learning. There is freedom in admitting that you do not have every answer. You do not have to know everything to move forward. You only need to be willing to learn. And perhaps that is what will surprise your family most. Not merely the money, not merely the achievements, not merely the recognition, but the wisdom, the peace, the maturity, the patience, the way you carry yourself, the way you no longer react to every provocation, the way you can walk away without needing the last word, the way you can forgive without becoming foolish, the way you can say no without guilt, the way you can say yes without fear, the way you can pursue your goals without stepping on people, the way you can become successful without becoming arrogant. That is the kind of rise that cannot be faked. It is not a costume. It is not an image. It is not something you can post online. It is something that has been built into your character through years of experiences nobody else fully understood. And when the time comes, people will feel the difference. They will notice that something about you has changed. They may not know how to describe it, but they will feel it. Because true transformation carries an atmosphere. A person who has found peace moves differently. A person who has found purpose speaks differently. A person who has learned discipline chooses differently. A person who has stopped seeking approval behaves differently. And you are becoming that person. You are becoming someone who understands that your life does not have to make sense to everyone in order to be meaningful. You are becoming someone who understands that the road may be lonely without being wrong. You are becoming someone who understands that sometimes separation is necessary for elevation. You are becoming someone who understands that not everyone can go with you. And although that truth may hurt, it will eventually set you free. Because there are people you are trying to carry who were never assigned to your journey. There are burdens you keep picking up that God is asking you to put down. There are conversations you keep revisiting that will never produce a different answer. There are doors you keep knocking on that may never open. And there comes a time when faith does not mean knocking harder. Sometimes faith means walking away and trusting that the right door will open at the right time. You cannot miss what is truly meant for you because you stopped chasing what was never yours. Let that settle into your spirit. You cannot lose your destiny by releasing a distraction. You cannot lose your purpose by leaving an unhealthy environment. You cannot lose your future because someone rejected you. You cannot lose your worth because someone failed to recognize it. Your value was never created by their recognition. Your value existed before they knew your name. And when God begins lifting you, remember that elevation comes with responsibility. Do not use your new position to humiliate people who once looked down on you. Do not use your success as revenge. Do not become obsessed with proving people wrong. The greatest response to doubt is not revenge. It is fulfillment. Build the life. Become the person. Complete the assignment. Walk in peace. Let God handle the people who misunderstood you. Your energy is too valuable to spend your future arguing with your past. Keep moving. There is something ahead of you that requires your attention. There is a version of you ahead that requires your commitment. There is a life ahead that requires you to stop returning to what keeps you small. And the closer you get to that life, the more you will understand why certain people could not remain beside you. Not because you were better than them, not because they were worthless, but because your paths were changing. Sometimes two people can love each other and still be called in different directions. Sometimes people can care about you and still not have the capacity to understand your vision. Sometimes family can love you and still struggle with the new boundaries you need. You do not have to hate anyone to move forward. You simply have to obey what you know is right. And as you move forward, do not be surprised if your confidence grows. Do not be surprised if you begin dreaming again. Do not be surprised if you start thinking bigger. Do not be surprised if you begin seeing possibilities where you once saw walls. Your mind is opening. Your vision is expanding. You are beginning to realize that the limitations you accepted were not always permanent. Some were inherited, some were learned. Some were created by fear. Some were created by repeated disappointment. But now you are challenging them. You are asking better questions. You are seeking better knowledge. You are becoming more intentional. And every time you challenge a limitation, you create room for a new possibility. That is why you must protect your mind. Be careful what you repeatedly tell yourself. If you constantly tell yourself that nothing will work, you will eventually stop trying. If you constantly tell yourself that you are behind, you will make desperate decisions. If you constantly tell yourself that you are not enough, you will accept less than you deserve. Speak truth to yourself. Remind yourself of what you have already survived. Remind yourself that growth takes time. Remind yourself that you are allowed to learn. Remind yourself that you do not need to have everything figured out today. Remind yourself that one difficult day does not equal a difficult life. Remind yourself that you can begin again, and when fear speaks, do not automatically obey it. Fear is often loudest right before growth. The unknown can feel dangerous simply because it is unfamiliar, but unfamiliar does not always mean wrong. Sometimes unfamiliar means new, and new is exactly where your next chapter may be waiting. So step forward carefully, but step forward. Be wise, but do not be paralyzed. Be discerning, but do not become cynical. Protect your heart, but do not close it completely. Set boundaries, but do not build walls around your entire life. You are not being called to become cold. You are being called to become wise. There is a difference. Wisdom allows you to love without losing yourself. Wisdom allows you to trust without becoming careless. Wisdom allows you to forgive without repeating the same mistake. Wisdom allows you to recognize when something is no longer serving the purpose of your life. And this wisdom will become one of the greatest gifts of your rise. Because what good is success if you cannot enjoy it? What good is money if you have no peace? What good is influence if you have no character? What good is recognition if you do not know who you are? God is building something deeper in you, something that cannot be taken away by a bad month, something that cannot disappear because someone criticizes you, something that cannot collapse because circumstances change. Character, wisdom, faith, discipline, integrity. These are the foundations. And when the external blessings arrive, they will have something solid to rest upon. So when your family sees your rise, let them see more than success. Let them see transformation. Let them see that the person they once worried about has learned how to stand. Let them see that the person they once underestimated has learned how to believe. Let them see that the person who once struggled to find direction has developed clarity. Let them see that the person who once reacted from pain now responds from wisdom. Let them see that the person who once needed constant validation now carries quiet confidence. Let them see that you did not become successful by becoming someone else. You became successful by becoming more fully who you were created to be. And as that transformation continues, there may be moments when you feel like the old version of yourself is trying to return. That is normal. Growth does not mean you never struggle with old habits. It means you recognize them sooner. You catch yourself. You correct yourself. You choose differently. You keep going. Do not demand perfection from yourself. Demand progress. You do not have to transform everything overnight. One decision can change the direction. One habit can change the year. One conversation can change the relationship. One opportunity can change the career. One act of courage can change the entire trajectory. Never underestimate the power of one faithful step. You may be closer than you think. The door may be closer than you think. The opportunity may be closer than you think. The breakthrough may be closer than you think. But even if it takes longer, keep going. Because the value of your journey is not measured only by how quickly you arrive. It is measured by who you become along the way. And you are becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more prepared, someone more peaceful, someone more disciplined, someone who can carry what you have been asking for. That is why the waiting was not empty. The waiting was building capacity, and capacity matters. Because sometimes people pray for a bigger life without realizing that a bigger life requires a bigger capacity, more responsibility, more discipline, more wisdom, more patience, more courage, more discernment. God is not withholding the blessing to punish you. Sometimes the delay is creating the person who can steward it. You are being prepared to handle what you once only dreamed about. And when that day comes, you will understand why the timing mattered. You will understand why certain opportunities did not work. You will understand why certain relationships ended. You will understand why certain doors remained closed. You will understand why you had to become stronger before you became more visible. Because visibility without character can destroy a person. Influence without wisdom can become dangerous. Success without discipline can disappear quickly. But when character comes first, success becomes something you can actually sustain. So keep working on the person nobody sees. Keep developing the habits nobody applauds. Keep making the choices that your future self will thank you for. Keep choosing discipline over temporary pleasure. Keep choosing purpose over distraction. Keep choosing peace over unnecessary conflict. Keep choosing growth over comfort. Keep choosing truth over appearances. Because every choice is shaping the person who will eventually walk into the life you are praying for.